All right. So as we start today, I'll share my screen here. Um, I want to start by just slowing down. And Ben and I were chatting for just a couple seconds before we started, and I'm coming right in from a different meeting. So I'm not sure how you guys are checking in as you come onto this call. Um, But I just want to give us a little bit of space to quiet ourselves down before we jump in, and to quiet ourselves in two ways. One is just physically slowing down, um, taking a few deep breaths, uh, slowing down to be able to hear what's inside, and think about how am I feeling, what am I bringing into this. Um, so I just want to give us, and I'll do just a minute and a half here, where we can. Just want to encourage you to close your eyes and take some deep breaths and slow down and to listen and to think about what you're bringing into this call, what is going on around you. Think about what's inside you right now. How do you feel? And even as you're doing that, if you need help with some words that might be there, you can look at the screen and there's some just different emotions. And I know that as we did a Trek week the other week, it was a good reminder for me of the different families of emotion. And we're quick to mention the happy, we're quick to mention when we're excited, but sad or angry are not the ones that we quickly go to, or feeling scared. So just look at, quiet yourself, take some deep breaths, look at this, and just find a word that you said, this describes me right now. I was going to give us a minute and slow down, enjoy the quietness. All right, so I want to, but this stood out to me. Actually, again, during our Trek week in Nairobi the other week, and I felt it even as I'm here leading this conversation today. I was looking at this wheel and looking at these faces and stuff. The word that actually kind of stood out to me is that I feel tense, um, which think about, like, why do I feel a little bit scared right now?
Stephen, you breaking up?
Fitness.
Steve? Okay, Stephen just reconnected. So let's just give him a second. Are you back?
I am back.
Sorry, we missed
I'm-
basically everything you said.
Brilliant. What I was saying is I feel tense that things aren't going to go well today. No, I mean, as I check in, as I kind of think about how I'm doing, you know, I feel this pressure and this anxiety or to just get it right. And I just had a moment there in some of the quietness just to bring that to the Lord and say, hey, this, you know, meet me here. And there's just a short moment for me to step into, hey, I'm excited to be here. This is stuff that I love to do. Yeah, I don't need to feel tense or anxious. I got to have a little moment in that space. So feel free as we keep going here. If you want to share just in the chat how you're checking in today, that's great. Second thing I want to do is just again, I'm getting started and slowing down. I want to read this verse. I want to read this passage. This is a reading from the book of Luke, and Luke was a doctor. He was a friend of a guy named Peter, and Peter was one of the early individuals that followed Jesus. So Luke and Peter spent a lot of time together, and Luke just captured stories about Jesus in order to share these with those that came later. So they would have an accurate picture of the life of Jesus and who he was. So this is one of the stories and one of the times that Jesus was teaching. And these are some words that he said. And again, I just want us to, as we are preparing to talk about some of these things, and I want to remind us of why we're on this call. I just want to slow down and hear these words. So as I read this, I want to again encourage you guys to take a couple deep breaths, quiet your heart. There may be noise around you, but try to quiet those noises that are inside of you, and listen to these words. And as I'm reading it again, just pay attention. Are there words or phrases that stand out to you? So here's what it says. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So again, I'm just going to give us a minute. You can see the words here. What's a word? What's a phrase that jumps out on the page? Why does it stand out to you today? And I encourage you, even as you're thinking of this, write it down somewhere. If you want to share it in the chat box, that's great. We'll give us another a minute here. thank you guys for being silent. I'd love to hear from maybe one or two people, just if someone has a word that stood out. You can unmute yourself and you can share. Feel free if you want to share a word that stood out on the chat box. That's great. But I just want to give a space. Yeah, if one or two people want to share a word that hit them today.
I look at this and I hear the phrase, "You cannot hide what's inside of you." I hear it's not effort to bring out what is inside of you. It is the most natural thing. The good man brings forth good things. The evil man or evil woman brings forth evil things. It takes no effort. And also you cannot hide. What is inside shows and comes out. And I hear that. I don't think I've heard that angle so strong before, but I hear that today.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, just to add on what Pastor Ben has mentioned, I think I hear the word, to be disciplined in the word and to be fruitful in the word, because to be in the word, it means that one has to sit in the word, to meditate on the word, and in that way one becomes fruitful. And so I think like Joshua 1 verse 8 says that when you have the word of the Lord, when you meditate upon it day and night, and you become courageous, and the only way we can be courageous, is like in the position, like what we're learning today, when Joshua was living in a very difficult situation and was just reminded that for you to be the champion in the world, you need to meditate on the word. And I believe it's the same word for us who are sports ministers, to meditate on the word of the Lord, and we'll be able to see ourselves fruitful. So fruitfulness is the key word that I'm just hearing, fruitfulness in the word.
Great, thanks, Elisa. Again, so I'll pause it there. I know that I'm sure there's some more people that would love to share, but again, we finished up a Trek week, and a lot of these things are fresh in my mind. And one of the things that we did was we had these rhythms throughout the week, and rhythms of slowing down, because we were reminding ourselves of kind of this journey that we're on as coaches and as people, to continue to grow into the people that we want to be, the men and the women that God's created us to be. And one of the things that I think it's the disciplines that we want to keep reminding ourselves about is slowing down, paying attention to what's inside, paying attention about what are the voices that are coming in. How does that shape what comes out of who I am? How does that impact those around me? So thank you guys for joining me in a few moments of quietness. So as I said, why are we doing this? So I want to share, and I think these might actually be Meshach's words that Ben's quoted a couple times. That so Meshach, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this or not, but something that Meshach said, I think, was, we cannot keep coaching in the same way anymore. There's so many needs around us in the community, and we have this urgency, and we want to be as coaches across this continent, intentional of moving from being transactional to transformational coaches. This is so much of what we're trying to do, and why we do calls like this, is to keep journeying from this transactional, which is I give because this player has given me. I give based on what I receive. A transformational coach being much more rooted in unconditional love, seeking the holistic development and transformation of their players.
Yeah.
So we can see this change is desperately needed in the communities around us, and we want to kind of mobilize and activate us as coaches to step into this space. And we have this just an incredible invitation to step into this brokenness and bring healing. So there's a principle in this that we talk about a lot, and that is we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. And this leads to two very important questions. So who are you? Do you know who you are? Do you know what shaped that? Do you understand just the influences that have made up your identity? Are you aware of the kind of the inner man of what's going on? And also, do you know who you want to be? So I see a typo in my thing. So do you know who you want to be? As we discover who we are, we're also seeing what's important and where we want to grow. And we start to say, am I actually putting in some of the work? Another phrase we used was, we're not trying anymore, we're training. We're training ourselves into the men and women that we want to be. So there are a couple phrases that we use to kind of help shape this. We talk about the work before the work, and calls like this are some of the work before the work. So it's space for us to slow down, it's space for us to engage, to discuss, to think about topics that is both what's our response to these things. So when we start to get into topics of politics and government intervention within sports or the federation, we're going to bring a whole lot of feelings. There's going to be a whole lot of story that we bring into this. So work before the work is, do we understand some of our stories? Are we thinking about how we engage in these conversations with our players before we actually get on the field? So we've worked before the work, and also this idea of going back to go forward. So we look back at our stories, we look back at our past, we understand these things so that, again, we have greater understanding of who we are, what shaped that. And we also get the sense of, I don't want to be like that, or I loved this example, I want to move forward into more of that wholeness and healing. So these are just some key, again, this is review. This is like Trek refresher ambassadors review of some of the key things for us. One of the other key phrases that was really important, I thought, from this last week that we had in Nairobi is these three words: every voice matters. This was really powerfully brought out in our course, as we just got to hear from different voices telling their stories. And that created an incredible warmth and a safe space for more of the coaches to also to be able to share some of their story, to say, this is what's really going on. And as we did that, we learned from each other in deeper ways than I think I've ever experienced in a Trek week. And that just reminded me of, even as we have, again, this conversation today, your experience is really important in this. So some of us are much more experienced in the world of football, and even the topic today of might be we're involved in the federation, or we've got lots of experience in these things. Some of us are going to be newer, and we're just kind of getting our toes wet in all of this. But all of us have input. All of us have our voice is important. And how do we pull that out? How do we create spaces that we get to hear from one another? And that's, even for me as a teacher, that I hope my role is to help guide a conversation where more voices are heard, that we're really journeying together in this. So again, this is just a backdrop for today's conversation. And any time that Ben or myself or any of us as ambassadors, leaders get a chance, we want to remind us of these things, because we're having a conversation around a topic like this because we want to be intentional. We want to be really intentional in the way that we engage with our players and with the coaches around us, to be people that are pointing others in a good, right direction, and we want to learn from each other and how we do that. So keep these ideas in your mind as we discuss. I'll say this now. I'll say this at the end. I think coaches have a huge opportunity to be agents of change in the community and society. So we're for you guys. We're for this movement of coaches going out that really gets to be speaking hope and truth and life on fields all over. I continue to own this as part of my story of I love to kind of be a part of watching other people catch a vision for this and move out and start to bring what they're learning through these conversations onto the field, and they get excited about it. Like this is stuff that makes me really full of joy and motivates me. So I am excited to be with you guys for this discussion. So what are we talking about today? So we want to look at, again, Trek Journey is all about shaping the heart, shaping the mind, shaping our hands. So we want to think about, in the context of this conversation, kind of what, as we start to get into these topics of government involvement, election years, politics, football governance, what's going on inside our hearts. We want to pay attention to those things. These are important things to know, of like what feelings are triggered, what's going on underneath. We want to grow in our knowledge. So we've got some really experienced guys in this call. We want to hear some of their stories. And then we also want to think about, and we're gonna study some scripture, look at some verses that talk about this as well, of how do we engage. But then this leads to how do we practically actually do this on the field. So what's our takeaway? So again, the heart, the mind, the hands, or the feet. This is always what we're about. So here's our subject for today, and then I'm going to stop talking here. Our subject for today is really it's two subjects, but I see both these things happening in Kenya right now. So this is a personal thing for me. Some things that I'm passionate about, just kind of creating space to have these conversations. So first one is this. This is a government election year for us, and what we're seeing in the community. And again, I'd love to hear from some of you guys that are experiencing this as well. Just politicians are using football to access the youth and to sway them in certain directions. That could be positive, that could be negative, but we talk about this, of the power of football is it's a great vehicle to carry a message. So in this year, in this season for us as in Kenya, and I'd be curious to know what this looks like in other countries, the government really knows that as well, and to get access to youth, both for votes, but also to potentially stir up trouble. Football is just a tool that's used, and we want to think about how do we engage as coaches then? What does that look like? What are the messages we're sharing with our players? And what we want to talk about that. The second thing that again is related is just the local football federation. And right now for us as Kenya, it's a rebuilding. The government stepped in because of corruption and some issues in our local FKF. So as the government steps in, then FIFA no longer recognizes the federation. So we're in a season of there's not a really functioning federation for our country, and it's for us it's an age-old story of a fair amount of corruption and mismanagement within the local football federation. So again, this is a conversation like, what is our role as coaches in the community? Connect with the local federation. How do we engage? And again, I want to think about this. So these are kind of our twofold questions for today. I think they relate in this. I think there's there's an intentionality that we need to have in how we engage with people that have power and authority, and people that, again, based on some of our context, have disappointed us, and have their own selfish interests at mind. And how do we as community coaches, and especially as coaches wanting to be transformational coaches, engage with these political or ruling parties or bodies that do not have the same mindset as we do? And what does that look like? So that's where I think there's some overlap. So that's today's topic. And what I really want to do is open it up and hear a couple stories, or have some people share and hear the questions that I have. I think for us to kind of get going, and in some ways, we'll see where this conversation goes. So here are my questions for us. What do we see happening in our community around these questions? So what have we seen in terms of engagement with the local federation, or what are we seeing right now in terms of government involvement using football to kind of push messages to the youth? What's the impact of that in our communities? How are you guys impacted? How are we impacted by these challenges? How are your players impacted? And then what can we do? What are we already doing? So I'm going to put these questions in the chat box so that we can have a little discussion around it. So let me stop sharing my screen here. And I'd love to hear. I know. I mean, I've heard and I've talked to Mishak a little bit. I know that this is something that he's been involved with. So I might start with you, Mishak, just to share some of your experience, some of your story of engaging, especially with the local federation, and what that's looked like for you in South Africa. I think it's great to hear from a couple different countries what this looks like, because we're all going to have a little bit different experience. And I think we'll see how this discussion goes. But Mishak, would you be willing to share a little bit of just your experience, your story of working with the federation?
Yeah. Thank you, Stephen. As you were sharing now, those two topics, the first one was around sports in general and politics of a country. I was actually reminded of our own history in South Africa, that sport actually has been a key aspect in our history in terms of the politics of our country, in terms of separation of races. That's one of the key areas in which the government of the time, even now, we still see some of that aspect where football was actually used to separate people from one another in terms of race. And also, sport has actually served in the last, I think, 25, 30 years as a force to bring those divided races together, even at a political level, even at a national level. If you look at the Rugby World Cup that we had here, we even had the Soccer World Cup in 2010. So I think as community coaches, I think we need to be aware of the powerful impact that sport, football in our case, has. So it's best for us not to deny the reality of the fact that sport, football in our case, has the powerful impact of bringing people together or even separating people. And I think, as you said, we are transformational coaches. We're bringing hope, we're bringing light, we're bringing righteousness. Therefore, we need to be aware that what we are actually doing has got a bigger impact than just my local area. So I just wanted to just chip in terms of that level. My experience in terms of being part of a local LFA, it's been a long history that started in 2006. And it started just as a club owner, as a manager that wanted his club to participate in a federation. And I don't know, perhaps in terms of how I conducted my business, how I dealt with my players, or I don't know how I attended meetings. Some of the other clubs started speaking to me to be part of the executive committee of the local LFA within 2 years. So I took up the offer. I think what was key for me now, looking back at that, was the fact that I was not prepared. I did not do the work that I had to do so that I can be in that particular influential position. Because being in a local federation, even in national federation, the thing that I've discovered in the last 20 odd years or so is that you've got issues of egos, issues of pride, issues of greed, issues of corruption, even at the local level, even and I'm talking about at the club level. So to be part of a federation of about 40 members, about 8,000 players in a big city or town like Stellenbosch, it's actually very challenging. Different ethnic groups, different races. But I was not ready with the politics and the divisiveness and the backbiting and all the stuff that happens within a situation like that. As a result, I stepped out, and then to be recalled again about 4 years ago, perhaps maybe the testimony of perhaps what I'm doing locally in my ministry as well with the club in the LFA. Now this time I was asked to serve in the capacity of a Secretary General, which is a very, very influential position within the local LFA. And the key things that now happen now is that I think I was a little bit better prepared. The people surrounding me, there was a better team and a better partnership, especially with the involvement now with Ambassadors Football South Africa, with Ben and other people. And also the other people that I surrounded myself with. That helped, because when we were hit with COVID in 2020 and football had to stop, there was a lot of things happening within the federation itself that involved the district, it means the federation above us, to intervene. And that brought to me again the need. I came to realize that there is a greater need than just doing football administration. There has to be football, what I call football plus. And federations are mostly interested in doing football, providing competitions, providing development structures. Yet their only focus mainly, which is not what they're actually supposed to be doing, is only football and competitions. What is needed at a player level, at a coach's level, at a management level of a club, at a federation level locally, is what I call the ethics or the good governance at a club level, and that impacts at the federation level. And that is sorely missing. That is glaring. The way in which we are also even doing development, even of our players, the life aspect of it is also, it's not there. The federation don't focus on that. The gospel aspect, if I can call that, the future aspect, the leadership aspect of players, even of clubs, there's no focus on that. So my brief take over the last 20 years as somebody who's been a player and been a club manager and been in the highest position locally for the federation is that we as community coaches on this journey, we have to be aware that we cannot just get involved in the federation. I say, yes, that is a great mission field. And I believe we're actually called to be there. I believe we are called to serve there. I believe we are called to bring the light and the wisdom that I believe God has given us in those corrupt, difficult, challenging situations. I believe we are called to do that. But the greater thing is that we need to be aware that we are agents of change. And when we are called into those roles, either in your own club as a coach or as a manager, is to have this clarity. It's not only about football. It's about life and it's about faith. That is one of the biggest takeaways for me, that last year, that was a great realization that I've missed so many opportunities to advance the gospel, so many opportunities to bring light, to bring truth, to bring righteousness, because the clarity of the mission in the federation, for me, it was not, I had not sat down to clarify that, then so that I can be really, really effective. So for me, the great takeaway is, yes, I would encourage us to be part of the federation, because the influence and impact that we bring there is a needed one. There is basically, if I can say, no focus on the light, no focus on truth, no focus on righteousness. And people like us need to be there, because in the last 4 years, my partners and us being part of the federation, we could bring about the necessary changes within the federation that brought good progress for clubs, good progress for the LFA, which in effect actually created even a bigger backlash or resistance from those who did not want change, wanted to maintain the status quo. So that's why the district got involved in terms of dealing, stopping the functioning of the federation that we're part of. But for me, the main thing is, us individually as coaches, as club managers, we actually get to be in this mission field, because the need there is great in terms of players, in terms of coaches. There's a great platform and a great opportunity to meet with other coaches, to journey with them in that platform, because most of our players and most of our clubs actually want to belong to a federation. The need and the demand and expectation to be part of a federation is huge. So I encourage us to be there, yet to have this clarity and awareness that that is a field. And it's not only about football, it's about faith, and it's about leadership, or it's about future. Because that is basically what our players need, what our people need, what our communities need, what our countries need. And I believe God has given us this vehicle, which is still troublesome. The federations all over the world, I think there's challenges, but it's a vehicle I believe God has given us, or a platform, or a field of operation. Yes, just as you play a football match, it is always challenging. You meet with awkward opponents, awkward defenders, awkward situations, but it's for you to stay in the game, and even in those situations, still display, as we just spoken about, the good fruit that has been stored up in you. Because all the situations, I believe, will provide us with opportunities to reveal what is actually within me as a person, whether I'm a person of the light or not. So that is basically, in a nutshell, what I can share. An encouragement of the 15 years or so, for us not to be outside of the system, if I can call it, but be within the structure, yet clarity of why we're there. And clarity of having people that you are journeying with, either as other organizations, like, for example, ambassadors, or individuals that you are surrounding yourself with, because it is a very, very challenging situation. We are having elections this year of our national federation. The politics and the things going on, there's people who are being threatened. People are being there's major things happening, because it's an issue of power, it's an issue of incentives. There's a lot of money involved here. There's prestige. So it is great for us to go into this field, yet to be aware that we are there as a mission field to bring the light of Jesus into the situation. Because the world, our country, your community, your federation needs this. That's
brilliant. Meshack, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, and just reflecting some of the things that I hear from that. And if anyone has like a follow-up question for Meshack, just put it in the chat. That'd be great. But what I hear, and some of the things I picked up is, first of all, he was chosen because of his conduct. That the way he carried himself kind of gave him that initial invitation to be a part of it. I heard just the idea of not being prepared the first time, but the second time he had the table of support around him. he had more partners and friends and people to kind of journey with him in it. I also hear just the clarity of the vision. Again, who are you? Who do you want to be? There was a clearer sense of who he was and what he was bringing and what he wanted to see from the federation. And then I also hear just the call and the kind of invitation to be like, we should be there. Like, we should be involved in that. And that's so brilliant, Meshack. I'd love to hear from maybe another country, someone from Kenya, someone from, Elisa, you're in Zambia. And I know we had some Nigeria. Just experience from where you're at. What does this look like again, how football is being used as this powerful vehicle with politics, and also maybe with again, engagement with the local federation. Anybody want to share?
Yeah, I'd love to come in, and yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful topic. I'm learning a lot. I just want to give an example towards, here in Zambia, under the Football Association of Zambia. Football is a big industry for many in the country, from all walks of life. And so I'll be able to use an example of the current government that is in power as far as football is concerned. The past 5 to 6 years, the FA president, being a businessman, has brought in some phenomenal ideas on how to raise funds. And so you find that what I learned from the association is that he has decentralized the football in the country by bringing in some entrepreneurship skills. So for example, instead of the association, depending on the government for source of funding, what he has done is that he has come up with creative ways of making money, like coming up with our own design of tracksuits. A branded Football Association of Zambia, branded tracksuits and jerseys as replica to sell to the entire country, and that has brought in some good income, and henceforth changing the face of the Football Association of Zambia. And so what we're learning from this man, and what we can learn as African leaders, is that we need to be creative and not relying on the sources like the government or any other stakeholders, but instead for us to be creative, like what our current government has done. And so the results are now showing, because even in the local budgets in the Association of Zambia, there's a big percentage that is coming from them as a way of funding themselves, and they don't mind doing so. It's because they are bringing in all those ideas. And the other thing that has decentralized football in my country is the development of girls football and youth football. I think these entrepreneurship have brought in issues like starting grassroots football, which is the key element. And so combining all these things, ladies playing football and bringing in the business entrepreneurship has made the face of Zambian football doing well. We may not be doing so good at the highest level, but Zambia has become a force to reckon with in terms of girls football and youth football. And it's because of the current government that when they came into power, the budget was almost zero. The association was almost bankrupt. So what the Association of Zambia president said is that there is hope if we become so creative, we use our entrepreneurship skills to make money. And as I've already said in my preamble, that the association is now able to fund itself and to see projects. And so the learning point for in that scenario is that we don't have to give up even when our budget looks to be low. It's just about what can we do to use our brains, and that's when we pray. And the Bible, Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7 says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask the Lord for it. And I believe as Africans, God has given us this platform through the leadership of Ben. Sure, we creative ways on creativity. And so this is one thing as ambassador of football, I would love to show my Africans that you can create money out of nothing when you use your ideas. And so because of that, the structure of football is changing. Yes, we do have other partners like the bank, sponsoring the men Premier League, but that's just a percentage of running football. And so we need to have to diversify our ideas. Each one of us in our offices, we are gifted in different ways. And so we bring those ideas together as Africans. We'll be able to see development and see that the part of the percentage does not depend on the West, but rather for us to come up with creativity. So I think that's my contribution towards today's meeting.
Thanks, Belisa. And I think it's interesting again to hear a different perspective. A different face of the federation and association raising funds to pour back into the association. If that's happening, that's really encouraging. I think maybe my Kenyan cynicalness, I don't know how much. I feel like there might be some great creativity that goes to certain individuals, not necessarily to go back. But I think the creativity, the entrepreneurship, I think that's a beautiful thing to pull out within this. And I heard also just the investment in the grassroots girls football, which is encouraging to hear. I would love to hear if either Peter or Sunny in Nigeria, anything you guys would add just of kind of what this might look like or what some of these things look like for you in your context. If not, that's okay. So Sunny or Peter, if you have any insights or thoughts from Nigeria. If not, that's all right.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Peter.
Oh, I actually had been in the traffic. I just stepped into the office, so that's why I didn't mention a new thing. Now, right in the office, there's no light, so I can't have my video on. So, but I've been following through the teaching, the learning, and the training, and I'm really encouraged and also blessed that we're able to start thinking in this line of thought and also the direction of how we can actually journey along with the world of football, particularly coaches and also federation. So from Nigeria, of course, it's a very different environment, a different
We lost Nigeria. Oh, we'll see if he comes back. Peter, are you back?
The network. Yeah, I'm back. The network went off and back again.
All right, go ahead.
So we've been doing that. Actually, what we started doing initially was a church league, but as time goes on, we couldn't continue with that. But very much in our heart is also how we can see key persons, believers who are already in sports commissions or federation we can actually network with and also share this bigger platform with them as well. So that's what's happening here, particularly in Lagos. We're very strategic about the people we.
All right, so Peter might join in. Oh, one last try, Peter.
it keeps going off and on. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Yeah. Being intentional and strategically reaching out to the ones that we know that can be of influence also, even in the sports field here in Nigeria, in federations.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I think, I hear even in that, like the wisdom of who you're partnering with, who you're connecting with. I think that's an important principle, important idea. I'd love to give a chance just for someone from Kenya. There are many of us from Kenya. I don't know if there's someone that's itching to say something, to kind of tell some of their experience of what they're seeing in their communities. Is there someone from Kenya that would want to share just for a minute or two, just a quick kind of what's happening on the ground here? All right, well, that is okay. If someone does want to share something, Mishak, I've seen you unmute a couple times. Do you want to add something here?
Yes, I just want to latch on to my brother's comments relating to the abilities of countries or federations to raise the necessary resources, either financial or material. I think I want to connect this with the issue of the heart. One of the things I've experienced in South Africa is the issue of the ethics or the good governance, that needs to be in place from the national federation right down to even the local federation I'm part of. One of the reasons why there is a challenge against us who are serving locally is because, as I said, we brought a necessary turnaround of adhering to the protocols and the procedures in terms of financial processes, management, you name it, because we want to do things in the right way. But that has created a problem because the system itself is endemic with corruption, right from the top. South Africa, I don't think, has a challenge in terms of money or finances or support. There's many banks and companies and organizations internationally that are supporting football in South Africa. Local clubs are able to raise a lot of money from sponsorship, kit, you name it. So the issue of funding, I don't think is a problem. And a federation, even at the local level, is supported materially by what you call lotto. There's a lotto process here in our country. But however, people are attracted to the federation to serve in positions because of that. So the issue is not whether there is resources or not. It's necessary to have resources because we cannot play football without a ball or a field or a key at times. However, I believe the main thing is the heart of the people who are in positions. And that is why my encouragement is that people are not going to be transformed if we are not spending time with them. So that's why my encouragement is, let us, who are people of the light, spend time with them. They may not change immediately. However, the light is there. There is something else. Because a lot of our clubs and people are sitting in a situation of hopelessness. They are losing faith in whether football can be really run in a way that benefits the community and the country. Because they just see these familiar faces for the last 10 years who are entrenching power and just utilizing the resources for themselves and just gaining from and the issue is people are looking for someone who can bring, or some people who can bring some sense of hope. This thing can work, and I believe we are sent into this environment, as difficult and challenging as it is, to be those agents of hope, those agents of change. It may not change immediately. It may not be transformed and be perfect immediately. In actual fact, I believe there's going to be a resistance, but the light has to shine. So the key issue for me is not the resources, because I believe there's many ways in which you can raise resources. The issue is what is happening within the heart. Like the scripture of today is very, very relevant, because sitting with a lot of money and power actually reveals what is actually in your heart. And we're seeing it all the time. So the issue is we need to be alongside people, challenging them, given the opportunity that we have either in the committees or in the meetings, on the field as coaches, in the federations or at the national level. We need to be people who are living out, embodying a new way of doing things, a hope-filled, light-filled way of doing things. Because that's basically what our children, because that's mainly the thing that motivates me. The youth and the children are looking for that hope. Because if things are not working at the federation level, it's affecting what is happening on the ground, on the day-to-day basis. So the kids have no facility, the kids have no place to go, the kids have no structure that organizing them to play football, to engage in football. So we need to bring that excellence, we need to bring that goodness, we need to bring that righteousness, we need to bring that good governance at the local level, because that is what is needed. Yes, I applaud efforts to bring things together, to bring resources, but the key thing is with that, we need to be working on the heart of the people that are in charge of dispersing or managing those affairs of the federation.
Thanks, Meshack. Well, let me for the sake of time, and we'll have a couple minutes here at the end, but I want to kind of pull off of a little bit what Meshack is sharing. Before I do that, I asked a couple of kind of the coaches that we work with here in Kenya, kind of what they're doing around the elections and what this looks like. And one of the guys I talked to is in Machakos, and it was encouraging for me to hear. I mean, he gave some really like practical things with elections. He's like, I want to educate the youth in my teams in respect to voter registration, like voting and electing leaders, not just like, well, how do you do this? Not just being influenced by money, but you're choosing a leader who will impact the youth, and like, do you know what they stand for? Like, there's a sense of being a guide in that process. He mentioned that there's some of the youth within his team that are vying for spots in government, and it's like, how do they as a team support and encourage some of the guys that are kind of within their midst that are engaged in that, and then also just educating around just the pressures of violence that the youth are going to face, and how does he as a coach prepare them for that? How do they respond? So they're able to say no when that invitation comes, to kind of join in with some of that crowd. He mentioned this, a lot of the hardships are it's a culture of handouts. So there's just so much cash kind of being shared in those spaces, and a lot of politicians and kind of the area he was talking about as just wanting to use the youth to advance their agenda. So these are just some of the things that are just very much a kind of part of his context. So one of what I want to kind of end with from my side, I want to share a couple thoughts here of some principles that as I've been thinking about this, and these are not all of the principles, and I feel like Meshack just hit on a lot of these things as well. These are some of the things that I see in scripture that are challenging me as I think about how do I engage. So I'm not going to read through all these things, but this first one here of like submitting to authority. And there are a couple verses that I've put here, but this 1 Peter one in particular, it's submit yourself for the Lord's sake to every human authority, whether to the emperor or to governors, And it's, it's saying this to the emperor, like, this is not someone that, this is an oppressor. This is someone that is like actively, in lots of ways, punishing this people group, that they are an oppressed group in this government, in the system that Peter's referring to, and it's saying we need to show, submit ourselves to them. At the end of these verses says, show proper respect to everyone, love the family of believers, fear God, honor the emperor. And that phrase I've been thinking about, what does it mean for me to honor the Federation? And what does that look like? What does that look like in the way that I speak about the Federation? Is it always hopeless? Is it always those people? Or do I show honor and respect, even though I see some things that I'd love to see changed? So God's word actually is challenging my heart of what does that look like to submit well to the authority. The second thing that I just want to pull out here is the seeking the flourishing of your city. So in Jeremiah 29, it talks about seeking the peace and prosperity of the city. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too shall prosper. And again, I think of Meshach's example of engaging in the Federation and being a part of it. And you're wanting to see the Federation flourish. You're wanting to see our nations flourish, because as we want to be associated with a healthy federation that benefits all of us, coaches, players, our leagues, our teams. We want to work for the good of these bodies. Again, this is spoken to the Israelites while they are in a foreign territory, when they are, slaves of the Babylonians. This is when he's saying, seek the flourishing of the city. I get challenged by that. What does it look like for me to wish well upon the Federation? Is that as simple as saying, hey, all the coaches that I work with, being like, you should go to the Federation courses. They're great. They're important courses. Even if they're not the best courses there yet, but it's, I see what areas where they're trying, and I want to be a part of seeing that continue to grow and flourish. The next one I want to mention, and this one really struck me the other day, is do not gloat at your enemies. So listen to these words. It says, do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and let not your heart be glad when he stumbles, lest the Lord sees it and be displeased and turn his anger from him. I mean, this is just a verse that's saying, like, what if I am rejoicing because the Federation was called out in this, and I'm rejoicing in the failure of this, I really need to be seriously thinking of my heart. And the question that kind of got stirred up for me in this of, like, in Kenya, the leaders were caught out with some of their I'll say financial mismanagement. So am I rejoicing in their failures? Am I rejoicing in that? Do I find that I'm celebrating when the Federation looks bad? Well, that's something I need to check in my heart. Are some of the things that I see them doing, do I see some of those same things in my own heart? Am I move towards compassion, and am I kind of moving to long for redemption there, or am I just kind of celebrating when they fail? The word says don't do that. Be careful. Love your enemy. I mean, man, talk about some challenging verses. If you've been burnt by the Federation or some of the local leaders, and I know lots of coaches that's their story. I just feel like, it's hopeless in a lot of these areas, and it's saying love your, it's saying if you only love your neighbor, you are no different than any other coach. And I think that's something we want to be. Different coaches. We want to be transformational coaches. So how do we love and seek the blessing even of some of those people that we would say, this is an enemy. This guy's working against me in different ways. And it's challenging, and I encourage you to look at those verses. But it's saying, are we different? Are we different? What does that look like? And let me read these words from that scripture in Matthew 5. It says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven." And this has been one of the things that I think I've been most challenged by, and also most encouraged by, because I know I can do this. Because I can actually pray for the leaders. I can pray for, before I can pray for Nick. I can pray for these guys that I know are sitting in these positions of power and authority. And Meshach saying, I can pray for their heart. I can say, God, please, convict them, turn their heart towards good, so that there's more flourishing within the Federation. I want to actively pray that the Lord does something in them that moves them to seek good, and that life is brought out of the Federation. And that's a challenging thing to do. But a couple of these verses kind of hit on this idea. Are we praying for the leaders? Are we praying for those that even those that have hurt, and not just prayers of God punish them, judge them? I think there's legitimate truth in hoping and resting, and ultimately God is the judge, and people will stand accountable for what they've done. But that also means that I don't need to be the judge. So I don't need to be in judgment or judgmental towards anyone in the Federation, or that they're all like that. But I get to actively engage and actually pray, and I get to say, I can enter in, because I know ultimately there is a judge that's also there. So the last thing I just want to mention is just expect suffering, and this has been challenged again, and for me in different ways. I think if we are entering in, as Meshach said, if we're saying, I know that it's good for us to be involved, the reality is our goal is usually not the same goal as the Federation, and that's gonna create conflict, and there's gonna be some people that really don't like it. So to expect it to be hard, and I think that's one of the things that is so important to have people around us that are encouraging us, is that they can encourage and give strength and give us endurance and be there when things get thick, when things get tough, whether it's suffering of persecution, whether it's suffering of reputation, suffering of temptations of different things that can come, that we're surrounded with other people that are also journeying in this. So these are not by any means exclusive lists. This is not something to say, hey, now go and do all of these things because it was said. But what I really want to invite us to is to also, as we look at this conversation, it's examining our own hearts and saying, what can we do? What does this look like? Even as some of these thoughts that have been shared by different people, like what does that look like for me in my context with my team, in my local federation? Again, whether it's federation or whether it's with the youth that I'm coaching, that are going to have a whole lot of pressures put on them this year with elections. And how do I do the work before the work, that I'm prepared to give them something to help prepare them to enter into the things that they're going to be facing as players, as youth, as children in a season like this. So again, let me just stop right there. Any thoughts from this? And also, I know Robert, I know you've got different experience as well in the Federation from Kenya. I'd love to just hear if there's anything from you, any perspective, any thoughts that you have as you just kind of listened in on this conversation. Hold on, let me get you to unmute here. There we go.
Yes, actually, as a community youth, as a community coach, a club coach, last training was very good for me, and I say thank you very much. It was an eye-opener for me too. There are so many challenges that we have and celebrations during this time of election that our youths are being involved in so many tournaments. Some are promising to pay, some are not paying. But all in all, what I would like to say is that even the federation at our level are not trusted by the politicians to run off some of their tournaments. So they want other people, new people, to come up and then run these tournaments. So that's a very big challenge. Another challenge is the uprising of football academies, that everybody just want to come up and they start their own. Your assistant coach, they want their own because of the unemployment and the politics within the federation. Our local federation today, where I'm in Machakos Lower County, Machakos County, and we are playing the Machakos County League. And we have also a team playing at the sub-county with the Ward League. One club, 2 teams in the league. And we have some divisions within the association. Some are saying they are the legitimate, some are the legitimate. So even now, they are 2 trying to run the same league. Now, some people are being told to pull out because of what has happened at the national level. So we are also affected at the county level by having 2 officers trying to run the same league. So as people who know Jesus Christ, this is the time that we are now called to bring purity, to decide and choose which people we can work with. That is a very big decision for us to make. We don't term them as enemies, but we say where many are is where now we will be joining, so that the competition can be better. So that's the challenge that we have at the right level. But the joy is that the politicians are seeing us as a people now, a voting bloc, or as an asset that can be used within the society. So they come to various teams around and ask for their votes. In my club, I also have one of our former players vying for an MCA seat, which also made our people aware that they have to register as voters, so that one of our own can be in and change the system. Because we found out that when we are out, the system is run by people who, some of them don't even know what, they didn't even get involved into sports. They are more into politics, so they are running what they don't know. But this time we want to try if one of our own who is saying is going to bring a Kandanda bill, a sports bill within the Machakos County, so that clubs up to a certain level can get some little budget or sponsorship from the government to run the clubs. Another thing that we've done as a Syokimau FC, we've also sought for some partnership with some clubs, so that at a sports marketing, that we can market for them. We have said if we have grouped our products into gold, we have bronze, and also we have silver. So if they want us to go with their banners, they want us to have their banners during our matches, we give them what they have to do, the medical kit, and we also have to put on their T-shirts. So there's a way we have grouped them. We have one sponsor who has agreed to partner with us at a certain level. So we are still doing some proposals, because this is a community club. We send these proposals to companies which are around, so that we meet their marketing team or SR teams, so that we can also have these people who are leaving the school leavers can do something before they get to the colleges, or they get something tangible to do. So that is what we are doing now. But we are saying, meeting with the people around every day, talking to them about leadership, talking to them about Jesus Christ. That is an asset that sports has brought to us to minister to, that we cannot get when we are not involved in sports.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, and I'm aware of time real quick, so I want to share, kind of wrap things up, because I think one of the things that I heard Robert share is even just who does he work with, right? Which of the leagues?
Yes.
And that's a serious thing for him. Like, and that's so to be able, I think one of my goals, and I think one of our goals as ambassadors, is that we are actually having these conversations and starting to say, are we as coaches coming alongside one another? So does Robert know that he's got people that can pray for him and actually help him think through that? That's, to me, where we say, what are some of the things that we want to see change? How's it going to happen? I think it's going to, what I think, what I hope, what I dream of is when there's community where we're saying we're committed to this, and that we're actually coming alongside to say, Robert, we're going to pray for you. We're going to pray that you have wisdom in that. And as you conduct yourself, and as you make these decisions, that fruit, that it's like you're having good stored up in you by God's word and by community, that it allows you to speak out of your mouth hope and life. And that's going to lead to some good things happening. It's kind of where we started, where we're ending in some ways of this. I mean, this is some of why we do these calls, is just to encourage one another and to have a space that allows us to discuss. So Robert, thank you for sharing. I want to just wrap up with a word of prayer. Personally, I'll pray for us. I'm aware of time. I have gone a little bit over today. I also know that there are a couple people that still wanted to share. So I need to leave. If someone wants to stay on and keep discussing a little bit, I'll keep the meeting open. That's fine. You guys can discuss a little bit, but I'm going to need to step off. So let me pray for us and say goodbye. Let's pray. Lord, I do pray. These are topics, and it's a discussion and conversation, and it seems simple when we're just on a call, but I know the reality on the field or at different meetings, it's just much more complex. It feels weightier sometimes in those moments. But Lord, I firmly am convinced, as we sit in your word, as we journey together, as we do some of these things, as we do the work before the work, that we prepare ourselves to enter in, that the weight of some of this becomes less, and the clarity and the vision of how to engage is clearer to us, and we have more courage to step into that. So Lord, I pray that for each one of us and the different spaces that we serve and that we work, Lord, that you would give us clarity of vision of how to engage and how to love well. Lord, I pray that we would do the work before the work to keep growing and understanding of who we are and who you are inviting us to be, and what that looks like for our community, and how that is played out in these spaces of election years and federations and different things. Lord, I pray for blessing for each of the coaches that are here, those that weren't able to join, those that might be watching later. Lord, I just pray that you would be raising up men and women that really take your word seriously and want to see truth and light and hope and peace and flourishing of people and communities all around us. So Lord, be doing that work. We pray all this in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. All right, so I will keep the meeting open if anyone wants to stay on. I'm going to need to leave. If you need to go, feel free to go. Isaac, I'm sorry to leave you hanging here. Isaac wanted to share something. Isaac, I'll let you unmute yourself. And again, anyone that wants to stick around, if no one does, Isaac, we can talk later. But if you have a few minutes, I think it'd be great to hear if there are a few more ideas and you can stay for a few more minutes. So, Isaac, if you want to share something, go ahead, man.